G'day Bomber fans, it's time for that cheeky ladder prediction, an early one. I'm going to revisit this right before the season starts again, but for now, we're going early. Today we're just going from bottom to top and guessing where every team will finish. I've made some big calls because there are always surprises every year. It's why this is so hard to do, so go easy on me, but also let me have it if you think I've got something horribly wrong. Leave yours down in the comments. Let's get into it because I feel like this is probably going to be a longer video today. Starting down the bottom, 99% of people are going to pick this team. We all agree. It's rare for a team to go back-to-back with wooden spoons. It's only happened once in the last decade, but I just cannot see how the worst team of 2024 can get better with the amount of players they've lost. This was a powerhouse club 5 years ago, fresh off a third flag, and now they're the youngest team in the comp. They're inexperienced. They've lost their core group of best players. 3 of the top 5 and their best and fairest walked to other clubs in the off-season. That is hard to grasp, really. They also lost guys like Dusty Martin. This team is going to be quite bad in 2025. Really, it's all about the future. The fans know that. They know that wins won't be on the agenda. It's all about how they can put themselves in a position for a flag push in the future. I can confidently say Richmond will not escape the bottom 4. I just cannot see a world where that happens. Would I like it to happen? If it's not at our expense, yes. Richmond 14th would be great if it meant Carlton or Collingwood were there instead, but you'll see later in the video, I don't think they're going to be close to this end of the ladder. But yeah, to give more detail as to why I think Richmond won't be any good, I just don't really see a zone of the field where they're better than any other team at. Their forward line is way too reliant on an injury-prone Tom Lynch. Their midfield, unfortunately, is a victim of bad list management. Taranto and Hopper just aren't the gem duo we thought they'd be when they signed, and their defence has just taken a major hit by some off-field Noah Bolter drama, which has seen him receive a big ban to start the year. This team's already on the back foot, and it's January. Last for Richmond, but I am keen to see how the young kids go. In 17th, I have West Coast. It was a really unfortunate trade period for them because I actually liked what they did to bring in Baker and Graham. That is valuable experience brought in from a premiership club. That can only really help the young players on the list, but they also lost some real experience that you just cannot replace. Jack Darling leaving the club is a tough one. They're already the second lowest scoring team in the comp, and that departure just doesn't help. But Tom Barrass leaving is massive. That puts a mountain of pressure on McGovern and the rest of the back line. McGovern has to stay fit for the year now, really, for this team to succeed, or I guess not be piled on back there. This team has some really good young players for the future. Putting Harley Reid aside here, they have a really nice body to work with. They have a new coach that they can build a relationship with, but that isn't going to help them in the short term. I can see them getting a few nice wins at home, but it's a long season full of hard road trips, and for a team that's won 2 away games in 2 years, I just cannot trust them to leap out of the bottom 4. I wouldn't be overly surprised if they did. I think this 17 to 14 or 13 range of the ladder could be pretty tight this year, which would be fun, but I just have the least faith in West Coast of all the teams in that range, so I've got them down above Richmond. 16th, this may be wishful thinking because we do own their draft pick for 2025, but I just don't see Melbourne being a threat this year. I really don't. They barely missed the bottom 4 last year, and that wasn't even the worst thing that happened for them in 2024. That off-season was a disaster. Not just the result, but the fact that players left, right, and centre were wanting moves away, and not just players, but stars and leaders of the club. This just doesn't seem like a team with a culture right now. It's a team that players are jumping ship to get out of, and even if they do turn things around, they have a slumber party to become buddies again, you still have a side that is way too reliant on individuals. They desperately need Gawn and Petrarca to stay fit. They need Fritsch to regain confidence up forward. They need Oliver to regain confidence in the midfield. They need May and Lever to stay out on the park and work in tandem. I feel like for Melbourne to succeed, so much has to go right, and with early setbacks like Gawn's larynx and Petrarca's ribs, I feel like everything probably won't go right. So I got Melbourne in the bottom 4, which would be great for us. And in 15th, rounding out the bottom 4 is North Melbourne. They will get lightheaded being that high up the ladder, but I do think this team has to improve at some stage. I'm not going to throw them in the 8 anytime soon, and I'm not going to put them out of the bottom 4 until they give me a genuine reason to do so. But I really do like what this side has done over the off-season, specifically in the trade period. They brought in some genuine experience that can help their younger boys, ease pressure on them. You got Darling, Daniel, Parker. They're all going to play footy this year. They're going to improve the best 22, and that is a team that will only improve with extra pre-seasons as well. Guys like Sheasel and Wardlaw and LDU, McKercher, Dersma. These guys are going to they're going to use the extra year to take their game to another level. Larkey has help up forward with Darling, which I love. I think that forward line is going to start to function properly soon. I don't think it's just going to be names in there anymore. I actually like the way North are shaping right now. It looks better than it has before. I still think they're going to be a bad team this year. They're bottom 4, and maybe I'm being a bit condescending in the way I'm talking about them, but I feel like this would be a win for North fans. They're gonna celebrate a fringe bottom four season, and it's only a small improvement, but it is an improvement regardless. It would be the first time since 2019 that they weren't in the bottom two to finish the season, which is a bit of a yikes when you think about it. But yeah, I think they're going to string a couple of wins together here and there. I have them just inside the bottom four. In 14th, we have the Saints. It's always a tough team to judge, St Kilda. They kind of fly under the radar quite a bit, even during seasons. They do. I feel like the sum is greater than the parts with St Kilda when they're up and about. They don't really have the list to challenge for finals in my eyes. I don't see a lot of star power, and it does get worse without Battle in that backline, but they do go out and get results and perform well under Ross Lyon specifically. They made finals in 2023, and we barely remember them playing footy that year. They had that strong finish in 2024 as well, so it wouldn't surprise me to see St Kilda higher than where I have them now. It really wouldn't, but I'm not going to predict it. I don't think they have the winning culture to make a proper finals run in a year which could be very even around the top. It's tough to build a winning culture when you're at a club kind of synonymous with losing. No offense, Saints fans. We also have to ask the question as to whether their defensive game style actually holds up. Yes, they don't concede scores. Only 4 teams conceded less than them in 2024. They're very good defensively, but on the flip side, only 3 teams scored less than them going back the other way in 2024. They were the 4th lowest scoring team in the comp. Same story in 2023 as well. They play it safe. They play a pretty dull brand of footy, which teams up the top proved to be kind of dated. In the last 4 seasons, only 3 finalists have averaged less than 78 points a game. You got to score to be in the conversation, and St Kilda haven't hit that magic figure since 2017. They're shrewd in their approach, which helps occasionally week to week, but for a whole season, they just don't play footy the way you need to play it in order to succeed in my eyes. I don't think they're going to be good enough in 2025. Sorry, Saints fans. In 13th, we have us, Essendon, the Bombers. We're another tough team to read. We have shown at our best we can play good footy and be up near the top. We were 5th late in 2023 after that win against the Crows. We were top 4 midway through 2024, but the wheels fell off fast in both those seasons. We don't seem to have the proper mentality required to be a finals footy team, and with experienced players like Heppel and Kelly and Stringer all leaving the club, it makes it harder for us to be around that mark again, you'd think. We're going to be very young in 2025. We're the 4th youngest list, and probably even younger on game day when you consider the fact that our oldest players aren't cemented first team options. I can see us having a fun glimpse into the future. We get to see Caddy and Kako in the forward line. We get to see Martin, Caldwell and Durham take extra steps in the midfield. There are genuine reasons to be excited for 2025 if you're an Essendon fan. I am, even though I'm predicting us to finish 13th, but I think on-field results won't be where they were in 2023 and 2024, and even then, those years weren't enough for us to break into the 8. I get why some are optimistic. That's the outlook I like to have, but I don't see how we can get better by bringing in 7 or 8 18-year-olds and nothing much else. I will say, though, we did have about 95% of our list underperforming last year. I can think of 3 or 4 players that exceeded expectations and probably 4 or 5 who met expectations. That, if anything, is promising to me, because if we can get those guys firing, big if, but if we can get Parrish and Draper and Ridley and Wright and Shield and Gresham firing, if we can get Reid and Cox up and about, if we can get them all playing the footy we know they are capable of and have seen them play, it makes us a pretty dangerous team. But like with Melbourne, a lot has to go right for us to have a good season. Too much has to go right for us, so I've got us in 13th. In 12th, we have Gold Coast. I don't rate this team. To be in the 8, you got to win at home and win away, and this team is petrified of planes. They hate away shorts. They travel really, really poorly. They've done so for years now, and that's what makes our loss to them last year so embarrassing. That was probably the worst loss of the year for me, that or the St Kilda game. But yeah, Gold Coast, they're going to win their fair share of matches in 2024. They've made Metricon a genuine fortress. It is really tough to go up there and beat them at their home ground. That's why you can chalk them down for 9 or 10 or 11 wins for the season, and that is around the mark where you finish teams 12th on the ladder would finish. I think they're going to be around this range of having a feel for finals, but never properly being in it again. I like Hardwick as a coach. I like the list he has at his disposal, but I don't really trust this team yet, and I'm not going to put them any higher until they give me a reason to trust them, so 12th for Gold Coast. I've got the first 2024 finalists of the video, Port Adelaide in 11th. I was honestly surprised they were that high up last year, but they did show their true colours a bit late in finals with that prelim performance. Yes, they were one of the last 4 teams remaining, but they didn't deserve to be. They were a fair way off the best when it mattered most, and with with Hinckley coaching yet again, somehow he still has a job despite underachieving for so long. I just think eventually something has to change at Port Adelaide. Eventually the Power either have to win a flag or they bundle out and perform poorly enough to force the club into actually making a coaching change. I don't think Port are a bad team in the slightest. I just think this season is going to be so even around this range. It's going to be so tough. They're going to be one of 11 or 12 clubs furiously hunting finals, and with proper pressure on their shoulders late in a home and away season, I don't think I trust them to stand up to it. It's only going to get harder with that top 4 fixture as well. This is going to be a grueling season for Port Adelaide. Throw in the fact that Houston left, Marshall's just done his Achilles, Dixon's gone, and those guys are replaced by fringe team members from elsewhere. I didn't even know Rory Atkins still played footy, if I'm being honest, and they traded him in the off-season. I don't get it. I just think Port were breaking even over the off-season while the clubs around them got better. I think they're just going to be leapfrogged, which would spell the end of Hinckley. In 10th, I have the Bulldogs, another finalist. Not really anything to do with them being a bad club or anything. I think it's so tight here. It's a struggle to split these teams, and I feel like for years I've overrated the Bulldogs and their list, and for years they've let me down. It's time for me to shoot the shot of a lower placed finish, and really it's the backline I'm worried about. I rate Liam Jones a lot. He's quality, he's underrated, but after that there actually isn't too much in terms of quality score stopping ability. I like O'Donnell for the future. Rory Lobb is good in patches but still has lots of work to do. I like the way they attack from defence. They have options there with Dale and Richards if he rests back in D50. They rebound and move the ball nicely, but when this team needs to defend, I just see holes. I feel like they look fantastic when it least matters. They'll bring up an impressive win earlier in the midpoint of a season. We'll talk about them as a possible flag contender, but when push comes to shove, it's just not a team you can fully get behind anymore. And like with Port, that puts Luke Beveridge under some pressure to perform. A big year coming up for him too. In 9th, we have what is probably the biggest call of the video now, to be honest, Hawthorn. But honestly, I just think this is roughly where they sit. I think they overachieved in 2024. I think that's fair to say. It's pretty obvious. No one thought they were going to be that good. They rode the wave. It was great to watch. But now they got to perform with pressure because they're being talked about as a flag contender. And their list management, the strategy means anything far from a flag is an underachievement now. But we got to remember how much of a good run of form comes down to luck as well. I'm not saying the Hawks were lucky last year. They were fantastic. They're a really good team. But it just so happened they had a bottom 6 fixture to deal with, playing North and Richmond twice. They had one of the cleanest runs of health in the comp. The stars aligned for them, and for things to go right again, the Hawks will need to navigate a much harder fixture this time round. They'll need to remain fit, and they will need to come to terms with the fact that teams have now done their homework on them. They're no longer a bottom 6 club. Teams are going to know how to beat Hawthorn and will be finding more and more ways to do so. That's what happens when you're in the spotlight. It is so hard for teams that overperform drastically like Hawthorn did to follow it up the next year or even improve on it. I don't think they're going to drop off the face of the earth. I still think they're a good team and they're in a nice spot for the future in the next few years, but I don't think they're going to be able to hold up for the entire year. It's 9th for me. That isn't a bad result though. It means that they're still in the mix. In 8th, I have the Sydney Swans. The Swans from Sydney. New coach, big shock that one. So a new system in place after that devastating grand final loss. There is always the chance of a runners-up curse. I wouldn't be overly surprised to see them fall apart like other runners-up have done in the past. And I have that happening to an extent. 8th is a big decline, but I'm less inclined to have them missing altogether because of that interstate luxury of hosting a team at a tough ground that is the SCG. That of course comes with its downsides. You got to play at the MCG in finals even if you deserved a home grand final. That isn't fair. But being a good team from outside the Melbourne bubble also means that you get to host sides at a fortress if you can build one. And I think the Swans have proven the SCG is a tough place to travel. All they got to do is win 8 or 9 of their games there for the year and hope they can string 4 or 5 together on the road. I think that is well and truly possible given the amount of talent they have at their disposal. Their best players are still in the peak of their powers. They're only getting stronger, some of them. Swans to finish 8th under Dean Cox. In 7th, this one's really tough. I've got Adelaide. Honestly, anything lower than 8th here has to result in the sacking of Matt Nix. This is a genuine danger season for Adelaide. They were so close in 2023, not at all close in 2024, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt with the injuries they had to their key zones last year. There was really bad timing with some of them. You had Murray and Thilthorpe gone for most of the year, which put a lot of pressure on Butts and Fogarty and whatnot. But with Murray and Thilthorpe back, less pressure on Walker, less pressure on the other defenders. With Cumming and Peatling providing outside run and the experience of Neil Bullen, there really cannot be any excuses for Adelaide missing finals. They're good enough. They have the talent across the board. They just need to execute. Really big year coming up for the Crows, but I think they're going to be up for the task. It's a tough one. I've been ping-ponging between 7th and about 12th or 13th, but there's just a lot of talent on that list, and it's looking like it's going to come together at some stage. At spot number 6, we have the Giants. I'm pretty comfortable where they sit. Every year they lose players but replace them with talented ones already on the list. They bat really deep, and their list manager, their recruitment from the draft specifically, is really impressive. I'm not too bothered with Cumming and Peatling departing. They can cover those two. They've proven that in the past. I'm worried that we're getting to a stage, though, where it's almost a last chance for a few of the guys on their list, like Callan Ward, Toby Green, Cornelio, Whitfield, Kelly, Hogan, even throw Jake Stringer in there. They're all either approaching or on the wrong side of 30. Bodies wear down fast, and a few of them are injury-prone as it is to begin with. This is one of a few clubs I can see being at risk of an injury crisis, depending on how they go this pre-season, that is. But a lot is at stake here for the Giants. They're going to be hungry. They'll know this is one of the best chances they'll get at a flag anytime soon. I think they're around the mark, but there are teams I prefer over them. And one of the teams that I prefer over GWS is Fremantle, a side who missed the 8 altogether last year, but they've put themselves into I'm going to say a sneaky little premiership window. They've had some massive trading. The addition of Shai Bolton is massive for the club. He's back home, he's comfortably living, and he's able to freely play his best footy without the Melbourne bubble pressure. I think he thrives here. I'm really excited to see what he can do with his new team. A team who, by the way, were not far off the mark at all in 2024. They were 2 points off featuring in finals. That's how close it was. They looked fantastic for parts of that season, and they're only going to look better with those key pillars back. They ended the year with some important players, both forward and back of the ball, gone. That could have been the difference for the Dockers. I think they're going to be very hard to beat this year, especially because they travel well. 5 wins from 11 interstate games. If they can continue that trend, if they can lock down Optus as a nightmare for visitors and bridge their best and their worst together a bit more consistently, they're going to be a force. They were already really good in 2024. They just struggled to put away teams when it mattered most at the end of the year. They're going to be fine, though. They had a golden chance last year, but fluffed it a bit. I doubt that happens again. On to the top 4. I've got Carlton. I did have them a little bit higher when I was planning out this or my order before that Sam Walsh injury, though. I'm starting to wonder, though, is this club a little bit cursed? The thing with Carlton is that they're genuinely right up there, on paper as in, they're right up there. They've got a very, very good team, a very good best 23. Across the board, they are strong. You got the 1-2 knockout punch of Mackay and Curnow. That's the best key forward duo that the league's seen in quite some time. You've got that destructive midfield. You've got a 2-time Brownlow medalist there. Walsh is fantastic. Wiedering holds down the line in defence. They have some of the best players in the competition, many All-Australians. It's a really fantastic best 23. If fully fit, I think Carlton have the best starting team in the comp. The issue is, though, they're never fully fit. Last year, they started like a house on fire. They beat the eventual premiers at the Gabba. They beat the Giants. They smacked the Cats. They smacked up Port. They had some monumental performances, but then you just saw them broke down with time. They suffered injury after injury, and the depth wasn't strong enough to steady the ship. That is the issue. That's what scares me about Carlton. If they suffer more injuries in 2025, if they break down again, they're not going to be near the top of the ladder. They don't have the required depth for that. But if they stay fit, I don't see why they can't be in the top 4. They should be. This is a very good team, unfortunately for us Bomber fans. I'm trusting that their new head of high performance over there gets the job done for them to be up near the top of the ladder. In third, I've got Collingwood. I'm rubbing salt into the wounds for us fans. Premiership hangover last year, that happens. They were just never up to the task. 2025, there is going to be pressure back on them. They don't have the excuse anymore. There's no more reigning premiers tag. They're going to need to perform, and luckily for them, they've managed to bring in a brand new toy for McRae to work with. Bringing Perryman into the club is one thing. That's already so much outside run that you don't have to worry about anymore. But Dan Houston, that is an A-grade player right there, joining a team who won a premiership a couple of years back. I think the Pies are primed for a really good push. This is their last chance. They've gone all in. They're an old team. They're by far the oldest in the comp. Their average age is a whole year above the second oldest team, which suggests they are all in for this flag push. They have neglected the draft for quite a few years because of this, and if they don't get one, that's it. That is probably the last chance for a few of their gun players. So this is a massive season for the club. They have to make finals. It would be an absolute disaster if they don't, and even if they don't get a top 6 spot, if they finish 7th or 8th and have to travel for an elimination final, that is a fail in my eyes. They got to go really hard this year, and I back them to do so. In second, we got the reigning premiers. I'm actually not sure where Brisbane are at right now, if I'm being honest. The loss of Danaher is massive. massive. I'm curious to see how the forward line functions without him, because it is essentially losing their main target under Fagan's lifespan as a coach. So he's going to have to turn to plan B, whatever that is. We don't know what that is yet. It's pretty interesting to follow the Lions this year. They're stacked across the park for both experienced and young ready-made players in defence and attack. Ashcroft is back for a whole year. Tom Duday returns from his knee injury. They've got returning players that will act as new sign. Kitty Coleman as well. They've got heaps to like. I'm just not 100% sold on their scoring ability staying as damaging as it was in 2024 without Joe, but I back them in to find their way to a top 4 finish. In first place, I've got Geelong. I just look at this team and the way they recruit. You can back Bailey Smith to find form and be a star again. That's almost a guarantee with Geelong. You can back one of their unknown draftees to randomly be a gem. Every year we say Geelong will slide and they don't. They should have played in that grand final last year. They'll be kicking themselves that they let that one slip. They're going to be really hungry. For a few, it's the last chance, like with Collingwood. Cameron and Dangerfield will wind down soon. For a few, it's a new beginning. Bailey Smith, Jack Martin. I just rate this team. They're so professional. They're so well drilled. I feel like they're just going to be good. It happens all the time. For about 20 years, they've been around the mark. Credit to Chris Scott and his playing group. They cook over there. I've got Geelong first for the time being. And that is that. A full ladder on screen. Essendon 13th. That's all you really care about. Essendon down low. Our arch rivals up high. Great to see. But yeah, leave your ladder predictions down below. It's a tough year for. It's always a tough year for it, but this year feels even harder for some reason. I feel like it's going to be really tight in quite a few areas. Cheers for watching the longer video today, Bomber fans. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and as always, go Bombers.